This case that we're dealing with here was 100% a decision by Commissioner Clouse to what it looks like. Admittedly, there's some inappropriate action, but 100% her choice. And that puts us in a completely different ball game. I am not interested at all in having the taxpayers fund anything to do with this. And here we are, we've spent thousands of dollars. We've been contacted by legal firms. We have a potential of some pretty serious damage against the county that could be very substantial. And I don't think it had anything to do with county business. And we have conflicting information that has come out, even from Commissioner Clouse, conflicting information. And so we don't know the facts yet.
This video was intended to inform and educate the public.
I was hoping the board would take action to restore Commissioner Clouse to her committees based on the results of the investigation we heard on Thursday. I'll make the motion if there's support for that. Commissioner Edwards? I make a motion, will you second it?
If we were to get a second, I have some discussion points that I would bring up, but I'm not there yet.
Okay, I'll make a motion to restore Commissioner Clouse to her committees, external committees and commission assignments. Okay, well, without a second, it doesn't move forward for a formal discussion, but I would, as a commissioner item, I would like to ask my seatmates, I'm a little confused by that based on, you heard a report, we heard the oral contents of a forthcoming written report, which pretty much, there's some inflammatory allegations that kind of justified that motion to begin with. Those inflammatory allegations did not appear to be substantiated. We heard our advice of counsel on the issue, and I'm really confused as to why we wouldn't restore the commissioner to her assignment at this juncture.
I said I'd wait until the final report came out to do anything or say anything. So, you know, I think my opinion is it's premature. I want the final report, and then I'd like to discuss with all of us what are, what the commission's thoughts are on the findings, because there are some. I'm not gonna, I think I'm not gonna get into whether thoughts on anything until it's done, but I want to reserve my opinions, and I'd like to come out with or see the organization have an opinion, and we haven't had a conversation to have a talk about that. The administration, while we've looked at it through a legal lens, we haven't looked at it through an HR lens or through a policy lens. So I think it's premature at this point to do that. And whether or not there's a nexus with outside boards and commissions or not, that would be something that would be in an opinion put out, my hopes, by the organization, and not just, knee-jerking it. So that's my thoughts.
Commissioner Edwards, you're always a big proponent of elected officials having they're responsible directly to their constituents, and they have a certain degree of autonomy from the actions of the Board of County Commissioners, and I'm kind of surprised that you wouldn't see that that your position, if it's not in support of this motion, it seems inconsistent to me with previous positions you've held about elected officials and their connection to actions of the board.
Well, if this situation that we find ourselves in had anything to do with actions of the Board of County Commissioners, I might have a different view of this. For instance, I'll just use an example. Somebody checks out a county car, they're on the way to a meeting, I don't know, they're speeding, they cause an accident. That is something that would be concerned about protecting the county and that employee. This case that we're dealing with here was 100% a decision by Commissioner Clouse to what it looks like. Admittedly, there's some inappropriate action, but 100% her choice. And that puts us in a completely different ballgame. I am not interested at all in having the taxpayers fund anything to do with this. And here we are, we've spent thousands of dollars. We've been contacted by legal firms. We have a potential of some pretty serious damage against the county that could be very substantial. And I don't think it had anything to do with county business. And we have conflicting information that has come out, even from Commissioner Clouse, conflicting information. And so we don't know the facts yet. And as far as the report, we've had a verbal report from an investigator, but it's certainly not the end all. And it hasn't talked anything about the liability we may incur so that the taxpayers end up in a bad situation. I'm going to do everything that I can do to protect the taxpayers. That's my whole goal.
So you're paying someone a salary to not be able to do their job, and how is that protecting the taxpayers? I would like to remind the board that just a few years ago, a commissioner went to the HR department to seek out information from the file of a county employee that was running for commissioner, to funnel that information to an outside party that was seeking to remove that commissioner from the ballot. That to me was an incredible ethical and professional transgression that had nothing to do with their job as commissioner. At no point.
If I was here, I'd be doing the same thing. If I saw something like that, I would be saying the same thing.
At no,
Like,
that I'm saying?
yeah, like if I saw something like that, I would expect the same process. I would expect it, so like,
You would
I
have
hate-
been suspending that commissioner from their external boards and
Yeah.
commissions?
I want to come up with a process for
Okay.
when anything like, this is what we
There's
call
only,
for.
let me finish my point. There were only two of us on the board at that time, and there was no discussion of any suspension from duties, anything like what's happened to Commissioner Clouse. And you didn't make that motion, and I didn't make that motion, and you're a big proponent, Commissioner Edwards, of consistency. I'm always consistent, you say. I don't think you're being consistent. Because at that point, that behavior should absolutely have taken it. I mean, I wouldn't have voted to.
You should have,
but-
but you
well,
didn't.
no,
That doesn't mean we can't ever do it right.
I wouldn't.
It's never the wrong
let
time
me
to do the
finish.
right thing.
I wouldn't
you know?
have voted to suspend that commissioner from an external board because I don't frankly see the connection. And which is why I wouldn't have voted for this motion in the first instance. But we addressed a policy to make sure that couldn't happen again, just like you've kind of proposed that we do. And that's what we did. There was no further discussion of any kind of disciplinary action, which in my view would have been far more justified than what we heard, maybe not at the beginning of this whole process, but after the oral presentation of a thorough investigation, that third-party investigation that we just paid for.
But, like, okay, I'm gonna say.
As thorough as it's going to be in a week and a half, or in 2 weeks. And there is now no factual justification for the motion that was made. I'm not faulting the folks that made it because there were allegations out there that were far more inflammatory, as I said, and concerning. But at this juncture, you know what that report's going to say. You heard the results of the investigation. You heard that there's no corroborating evidence for those inflammatory allegations that justified the motion. So I think it's unconscionable for us to continue to preclude a commissioner elected by the entire voters of Thurston County from doing her job at this juncture on this factual record. And I don't know why we're here or where we're going. And I don't see what this written report is going to do to change any of that. Commissioner Edwards, I saw your hand first.
I guess I want to point out, I believe that in your example, you've made a stretch on why I did go to HR. I went to HR because I had been asked to fill in to certify the election. I don't know why that was assigned to me. Whomever was in charge at the time, either the president or the chair of the board or the vice chair, were not able to make it. I was asked to sit in on that certification, and that was the reason for me asking that question. I know it was construed like it was some kind of a political deal, but it never was a political deal. It was part of the certification process. So I'll just say that. But I really do think that we've got a situation here that is brought on strictly by an individual's personal decisions and choices. And it has a potential of damaging employees. It has a potential of causing a hostile work environment that we're stuck with through no choice of this board. But an individual commissioner made some poor choices, and I'm not saying we don't all make poor choices, but I'm not there that we're off the hook, and I don't think we should be paying for any of this.
Given your example and what I just heard, right? So it wasn't handled right. Whatever happened, I don't know what happened, but it wasn't handled right. There was no proper investigation at this other thing, and then there was no final opinion given. So now we've still got, an unofficial, statements about what happened. I don't want to do that again.
I'd like to
So
see
what
you
I'm
in-
saying, is, you finish the investigation. It's almost done. It's not drafted. When it's drafted, the council commission has to get together and develop a response and a statement. And that statement's what's published. And then 5 years later, when different commissioners are arguing about what happened 5 years ago, they're able to say, this is what the official opinion was, and we didn't rush it. We didn't prematurely reinstate things. We came and we finally deliberated, and then there's no guesswork later on, and we move on. So I want to not do what you're upset about from last time, whatever this thing was that happened. And I would
The
like,
canvassing board directing
Sure,
Commissioner
sure,
Edwards
sure.
to go look in that's,
yeah, whatever, whatever wasn't, wrapped up in a bow last time. Let's not continue to do those kinds of things. Let's try to do better. We've got a situation. We've got, a standard way of dealing with things. And now we get a final report. The commission gets together and they say, well, these are the things that we're concerned with. These are the things we're not concerned with. And these are the things that we're going to do in the future to never make this mistake again. But we haven't gotten there yet. And so kicking out and checking off, whatever sanctions or prohibitions we've put in place until this is completed, in my opinion, is premature. Let's just finish this out, walk, don't run, and in a week or two, whatever, the chips fall wherever they fall.
I think all of what you said can be done without this suspension from external boards. But Commissioner Mejia, I think your hand is up.
Yes, it's been up. What we heard were preliminary results last week, and we received a lot of information, and honestly, at that point, I was just assessing where we were at. I'm going to be meeting with the county manager because I have a whole slew of questions that I now have, and some follow-up with the investigator, with the attorneys that I would like. So I'm not ready to move in any direction until there is something that's a little bit more finalized. And so I agree with Commissioner Fournier's assessment that it is premature at this time until there is something out that's available for the public. And then at that time, we can move forward. But at this point, I am not ready.
So once again, this board knows better than our legal team, and
We were in here a couple weeks ago when we were listening to our legal team, and we took their advice, and we ended up with a horrible audit. So I mean, just going on whatever the attorney said isn't always working out for us.
okay, so that's puts a bow on that issue, I think, County Manager.
Just my perspective, Chair, is hearing the level of questions and the need for additional information. My suggestion would be to go back into executive session with the investigator and the attorneys so that the board can continue the deliberation.
I like that done as soon as possible because that legal advice was given at the tail end, we didn't get a chance to explore it or hear it. It was clear and supportive of what I'm proposing, but we didn't get a chance to really debate it or discuss the ins and outs of it. So I think that needs to be done in light of the comments here this morning.
Will do, Chair.
Thank you. Any other commissioner items? We're adjourned.
Can't stop, won't stop, never stop. Can't stop, won't stop, never.